Hello friends, a very warm welcome to the video. Now we are in the second COVID wave and I just hope that we have reached the peak and the cases will fall further from here on. Now this video is about how different economies are picking themselves up after vaccinating a significant proportion of their population. Now the biggest solace for India and for the world has been vaccine development. After lakhs of cases and thousands of deaths, vaccine development has come across as a much needed relief. Nation after nation started vaccinating its people in a race to vaccinate entire population, or at least the most susceptible ones, in the shortest possible time. In terms of percentage of total population vaccinated, Israel and UK have taken the lead. They have vaccinated more than 50% of their people at least once. USA is closing in at 45%. Now, India will take some time to increase its vaccine coverage given that it has a large population. So, if we look at the vaccines being used globally and where they are being used, we realize that vaccines from Oxford AstraZeneca, Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna are being used most widely. Now, Oxford AstraZeneca is the same vaccine that Serum Institute of India is manufacturing and distributing. Also, the Sputnik 5 vaccine will now be manufactured and sold in India by Dr. Reddy's laboratories. Apart from these, there are also vaccines developed by J&J and some Chinese companies, but their use is limited and it is to a lesser number of countries. India's indigenous vaccine, that is Covaxin, developed by Bharat Biotech, is among the two major vaccines used in the country till date, apart from Serum's vaccine. Now, in order to understand how different countries are coping with the pandemic, we take a look at the various COVID-related parameters facing each country. Beginning with the data on cases and deaths, we find that India and US have the highest number of cases globally. Now, cases piled up in USA since the country did not impose any strict countrywide lockdowns or restrictions in 2020. India managed to tide over the first wave rather smoothly. However, complacency set in thereafter during the festive season and the second wave spiraled out of control. A slightly comforting factor for India is that mortality rate is pretty low. At just 1.1%, it is much lower than most other countries. As you can see on the screen, India faces a considerably uphill task. Now, on one hand, we have vaccinated only close to 10% of our population, and on the other, we are hitting new peak every day of cases and deaths. So, all countries except India and Brazil are now falling off from their peak. For India, we can expect some more delay in reaching the peak, and it is expected by experts that we will not peak out before May or early June. So now let us put an ear to the ground and see how the situation on ground is different in different countries, starting with India. In terms of cases, firstly, we are making new highs every day and we are yet to make the peak, as I mentioned. Most of the hotspots are centered around large cities such as Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru, Pune and so on. On the whole, the eastern and central India are better off. The central government has left the task of imposing restrictions to states. Different cities are therefore responding in different ways to the lockdown and restrictions. As far as vaccination is concerned, India vaccinated nearly 15 crore people in the 45 plus age group till 1st May, after which it was open to everyone with age 18 and higher. Now, this has put some pressure on the system and the whole vaccination process has seen some hiccups. But the message is that India will now vaccinate the entire adult population en masse. Now, the situation in India leaves a lot to be desired. Let us see what are the trends that we are picking up from countries which have managed to tame the second wave with considerable success. Firstly, we take a look at the United Kingdom. Now, UK has given shots to more than half of its population, hence the nation is slowly looking at taking steps towards normalcy. It plans to soon allow people from 12 different countries to travel to UK. Unfortunately, India remains in its red list. Pubs and salons have started with restrictions. Also, gyms are slowly opening up with social distancing rules. Now the government plans to relax social distancing limits a bit from 21st June 2021. Moving ahead to the United States, the president has announced that the US will vaccinate 70% of American adults by 4th of July. Travel restrictions will remain for some time. Places where people come together, such as gyms, health clubs, and few tourist places, are gradually opening up state by state, with restrictions obviously. The country is planning to open up in a big way on 4th July 2021, which is also celebrated as America's Independence Day. Next, we look at Israel. Now, this country has done a commendable job of vaccinating nearly 65% of its people. So people have slowly begun to step out of their house and mix up with others without using masks. Travel restrictions remain, and unfortunately India is among the barred countries. In cities such as Tel Aviv, people are slowly getting back to offices. Restaurants, bars and cafes are fully booked as people are just desperate to get out and have some fun. Now, apart from the countries that we just looked at, there are several other countries which are slowly looking at easing their restrictions. These include Belgium, Denmark, Switzerland, Germany, Italy and France. While some places are easing restrictions on social life, some are easing them on travel. No doubt, all of this is coming with a lot of caution. So now we briefly look at some fast-moving indicators across India, USA and UK. So starting with the United Kingdom, the PMI or the Purchasing Managers Index has reached its highest levels since 1994 as export orders from Europe, Asia and USA picked up. In USA, the index trend has been much more powerful. The PMI has continuously inched upwards since May 2020. The recent trends are that new orders are growing, backlog of orders has increased and exports are picking up. Now in India, the PMI has picked up steadily from May 2020 till November 2020 owing to pent up and festive demand. However, after that there was a lull for 2 months, that is December and Jan. The recent months of April and May 21 have seen the index move lower yet again as restrictions became more prominent across India. So in terms of average, the PMI value averaged at close to 55 prior to the pandemic. This number dropped to as low as 27 at the height of the pandemic, climbed close to 60 when activity picked up, and has fallen yet again to 54 to 55 levels in April and May. Now we'll show you the results of an interesting survey that was conducted by IPSOS. This is a market research and consulting firm based in Paris. The results of the survey show that a lot of optimism that Indians are having despite currently being the worst sufferers of the second wave. The survey states that globally, 60% of the respondents expect life to get back to normal within the next 12 months. 34% feel that it will take longer. Now what stands out is that the proportion of people in India who felt that we could get back to normal in the next 6 months was more than any other country in the survey. This is fantastic. Russians were the most pessimistic with 11% feeling that we might never get back to normal. This is highest within our country set. Also surprisingly, more people around the world felt that their mental health was at par with last year or slightly better. I think this could be because most countries have now managed to scale the second wave and it is behind them. So as stock market participants, the next obvious question that we ask is, so how are the stock markets reacting to the whole situation? If we look at the indices in our country comparison set, we find that emerging market indices were going great guns over the past 12 months. Now this was fueled by strong liquidity flows and record low interest rates by global central banks. The Indian Nifty 50 has returned the highest over the past 12 months. Now apart from the reasons mentioned, it was also the support of the RBI and expectation of a swift recovery led by government-led reforms post the pandemic. If you observe closely, the countries which are facing the worst of the second wave, that is India, Brazil and Turkey, their indices have underperformed in recent times those of USA, UK and Israel, which have achieved high rates of vaccination. But this also gives us a sense of things to come. That is, as vaccination picks up in India and we make a peak and go down from there, markets could bounce back. Or rather, I would say, the level of underperformance with respect to other markets would go down. Remember that we are a country of 1.3 billion people, and hence vaccinating a majority of the population is a huge task. We quickly take a look at the projections published by S&P Global recently for India's GDP in FY22 and 23. The rating agency said that India's GDP projections could take a hit of as much as 2.8% in a worst case scenario and 1.2% in a moderate scenario. Now, a moderate scenario assumes that India's peak comes in late May and cases begin to decline at 2% per day after that. A severe scenario assumes that India's peak comes much later than May and cases decline at 1% per day after that. However, it is equally heartening to note that a higher downgrade in a year is accompanied by a greater upgrade in the year after that. That is in FY23. This means that India is expected to recover at a fast rate owing to a pent-up demand and greater economic activity once lockdowns are released. This will be either front-loaded or back-loaded depending on the COVID intensity. And finally, the most important thing to remember as an investor, if you are a patient investor and willing to hold on to your nerves, India offers tremendous opportunities like no other country can. India's GDP growth over the next couple of years will be clearly ahead of others except China by a huge margin. So India is the place to be. Now we hope that the world gets to see this very soon so that we start living our lives as they were before the crisis struck. For that to happen, stay indoors and stay safe. Now I hope you liked the video. Make sure to hit the bell icon, subscribe to our channel and like our video. Thank you and happy investing.